Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our class, please do put your mobile phones or laptops on a table. Grab a notebook and a pen and take down notes. Please. Sikinabi.
Okay, guys, so welcome to our classroom. This will be our permanent classroom for our class in statics of rigid bodies. And for this morning, we will be talking about our first module, which will be an overview of this subject. And this subject, actually, the statics of rigid bodies, is a sub-branch of the whole concept of engineering mechanics. Now, on this first lesson, let us first define what is engineering mechanics. So for our learning outcomes for this morning, for this first lesson, we will first define engineering mechanics, and we will know what does force do, and also discuss the branch of engineering mechanics. Okay, so that will be the three lessons, the three goals that we have to achieve in this lesson. Let us first define what is engineering mechanics. So in your own perspective, what is engineering mechanics? Di naman ko kapangutanan ninyo, no? But anyways, engineering mechanics is actually the branch of science that is concerned with the state of rest or motion of bodies that are subjected to the action of forces. So what does that mean? In this course, in this subject, we will talk about forces. We will focus on forces and how can forces affect bodies, okay? Because the action of bodies are the result of forces. So let us first define what is a force. Unsa man din ang force? How can you define force? So basically, force just means the push or pull of a body to another body. So say for example, if I'm going to push this kaning atong chalk box, then I am applying a force to this box because my hand is one body, this chalk is one body, and this body is putting a force to another body. So mo na basic na definition sa atong force. Ingana lang kasayon ang atong definition sa force. Now, what can force do? First thing, force can make an object static. Unsa may pasabot na static? Kung mo'y kag static, dili basin maghuna-huna mo nga ang static mo na makakurente, dili na definition sa static, okay? So basically, static actually means wala naglihok. So forces can make an object not move. Wala atong first sa atong force. Unsa may example ani? Say for example, if I am going to sit on this table, so when you say force can make things static, I am actually exerting a force in this table. Ganyan sa man ako pag-exert sa ako force. It is actually by my weight. And now, I am not moving. Why? Because the table also is pushing me upwards with the same amount of force. That's why I am in static. I am not moving. So, naagihapoy interaction of forces sa aning akong position karon. Bisag wala ko'y gihimo. Second thing, forces can also make things move. For example, you are going to push this motor. Okay, so I can move this motor by using forces. Okay, so ako gi-push ang motor. So mo na siyang mi-move siya. So ingana lang kasayon ang atong concept of force. Pwede ka dili mo move with the interaction of forces, but also forces can also make things move. Ingana lang. Mao na atong second nga butanga mabuhat sa force. Maka-move siya og object. Okay? So third thing a force can do is it can deform an object. For example, you have this stick. Okay? And I am going to exert a force in this stick. So it bends, and probably if I'm going to exert too much force in this stick, then it will break. Okay, ingana lang ang atong third nga butang nga mabuhat sa force. Okay? So, in reality, all our objects deform. Okay? So, and they deform because of force. Okay? And number 4, we have also force can affect the behavior of fluids. For example, you have this canal. Come. Gaya mo.
Mamudmud gani ko. Mamudmud.
So, you have this canal. Actually, your canal is moving. Your canal is flowing. Why? It is because of the interaction of forces as well. Why? Because of the weight of the water and because of the influence of gravity. That's why your water is flowing in your canal. So, yung anak lang, may forces ang atong canal. May forces ang atong water because of the influence of gravity. Let's go. Now, may tao. And you also have some other examples wherein, are you familiar with pumps? Pumps put pressures on water. And ang kanang water, if ma-apply ng pressure, mag-change ng iyang behavior and it can transport from water from one place to another. Mo na gamit sa tong pump. Okay? Now, let's proceed to the branches of engineering mechanics. So what are the branches of engineering mechanics? Because engineering mechanics is an extremely broad subject. And to make it easier for us, gidivide ni siya into several sub-branches para dili matibo sa usa ka semester ang kani nga subject kay daghan kay ni siya, broad kay ni siya nga subject. Okay? First branch of engineering mechanics is the mechanics of rigid bodies. So this branch actually in engineering mechanics deals with a very ideal concept of mechanics. So when you say ideal, mura siya og kanang imaginary, mura siya imposible pa. And we are doing this to make complicated solutions easier. Okay? So rigid body actually means that all objects we are dealing in this subject will be what? Will be rigid. So may pasabutan na rigid. Let us all assume that all materials we are considering are diamonds because they all say that diamonds don't break. Di ma mag-break ang diamond. So let us assume that this paper is made of diamond and I can't deform it because we assume that this one is a rigid body. And probably, when we are dealing with the rigid bodies, we can create buildings that are made of paper because, again, we assume that all bodies are rigid and they cannot be deformed. Okay? There are actually two sub-branches of mechanics of rigid bodies. So let us first talk about the first branch, which is actually our course for this semester. And that is your statics of rigid bodies. So, di ba, I have already defined to you earlier that statics actually means that an object or a body does not move. And rigid bodies also are bodies that are not deformable. In this sub-branch, we are dealing with bodies that are not deformable and that are not moving or moving. And take note, they are moving at constant velocity. So, we can still consider an object static if it is moving, but take note that it should be moving at a constant velocity. It is not its velocity should not be changing because once the velocity changes from one time to another time, then that object is accelerating. And that actually pertains to our second sub-branch of mechanics of rigid bodies, which is your dynamics of rigid bodies. You will have this course on your next semester. And when you say dynamics, it is actually opposite to your statics. Kaya ang dynamics, it pertains to objects or bodies that are moving and they are accelerating. Okay? So take note, these bodies are accelerating. Dili siya constant velocity. Kay kung constant velocity, that is statics. Okay? Mo to ang duha ka sa branch sa atong mechanics of rigid bodies. And let's talk about another branch, which is you will be dealing on after next 2 semesters, which is the mechanics of deformable bodies. Unsa naman pod ni? 'Di ba ang atong first nga sub-branch kay we are talking about rigid bodies, they cannot be deformed. But in this sub-branch, we consider all our objects, all our bodies to be deformable. Okay? So, when you say deformable, they can change shape or siguro ang pinakagrabe, they will break. So, we will deal with objects that deform and that will break. Okay? So, mo na atong mechanics of deformable bodies. And lastly, ang third na itong sub-branch sa atong engineering mechanics is actually your fluid mechanics. And your fluid mechanics will probably be on the next semester, I guess. So, fluid mechanics actually deals with the behavior of fluids when subjected to forces. Okay? So, ingana lang, murag unsay reaction sa tubig or take note nga ang fluid is not only limited to liquid. They can also be considered as gas. So fluids can either be liquid or gas. Okay? So there is a fluid mechanics, we will tackle about the behavior of the air or of the water if subjected to forces, which can create pressure. Okay? Sige. So that will be all for our first lesson. And let us have a review. We have already defined engineering mechanics. You already have known what forces can do. And lastly is you already knew the branches of engineering mechanics. So I hope that you already have an overview of this course. Okay? And see you on our next lesson. Bye.